So where we stop chapter, and where at the very beginning, where there is some discussion back and forth between the minority school and middle way schools, and again, as we have better understanding of their arguments from both point of view, then our understanding of the middle way school become more precise, more profound, more deeper. Instead of going through the middle way school immediately without the different argument with the other schools. So that is one of the reasons why the author, the Shantideva, is going through those different argument between the middle way school and minority school and some other schools that will come later. Instead of explaining the middle way school from the very beginning, the purpose is to have more profound, more deeper, and more precise understanding, of the middle way school. So, and so sometimes those argument back and forth might be a little bit difficult, because in order to understand, we need a more deeper understanding of the view or tenets of both schools, which we are not so, if you are not so familiar with that, then sometimes the argument might, so I guess last week I think we finished 25th, yeah? Verse number 25.
We did, Geshe. We finished 25.
We are on 27, yeah.
On 26.
26, yeah, so. So here, 26, again, the mind-only schools is saying, if you fancy that illusions because the mind-only schools, says, their view is that, even though the external objects does not exist, different identity or different identity or different nature from the mind itself, but to our mind, there's appearance of the external object to the subject, the mind, as existing externally without being the nature of the mind, and therefore it is like an illusion because there is the appearance and to our mind and the way it exists is not same, so therefore, but even though that is case, so they explains, I think I might have explained before too, the way they say is, due to our imprint from past. For example, when you see one object, let's say a cup, due to our imprint having seen the cup in the past, So there is an imprint of that created by our consciousness seeing that cup. And that imprint is left within our consciousness. And then that imprint manifests into both subject and the object which is being perceived and the subject which is perceiving. So it is same imprint manifesting, it is like a same energy manifesting two different things, the subject and the objects. So therefore they come from same, so therefore both the subject and the object are same nature, same nature, same, and even though they are same nature, but they would say the external object is not a mind, because mind is internal and external object is external. There is internal object and external object. But both that, the subject, the mind and the object, is manifesting from same imprint of the mind. And therefore they are in same nature. And so therefore, therefore that object is not one or same with the mind, the subject. Neither is totally different because it is same nature, and therefore it is more like indescribable, more like indescribable. So that is what, and so, then to that, the Madhyamika kind of refute that if you fancy that illusions are neither different from the mind, okay, nor non-different. So if you say it is not one with the mind, neither different from the mind, then if it is really existing things, how can it not be different, So if it is not different, then it does not really exist. So then the Madhyamika is saying, if something really exists, either it has to be one with the mind or separate from the mind. If something is not either one with the mind or separate from the mind, then it cannot exist. It has to be either one with the mind or separate from the mind, or different or separate from the mind. And if it is something which is not different from the mind, neither one with the mind and neither different from the mind, then how can you say it exists? So then that is the kind of argument he's making, So then next one, just as an illusion can be seen even though it does not truly exist, so it is with observer the mind. So again, the mind only school says, the external things, the external objects are like illusions, and they are not truly existence. The external object of the mind are like an illusion and they are not truly existent. Why? Because even though those external objects do not exist, totally different nature from the mind, but to our mind, it appears as a different nature, separate from the mind. And therefore, even though it's the same nature, both the mind and the external object, even though they are same nature, but to our mind, it doesn't appear as same nature. To our mind, it appears the external object as totally different nature, totally different from the mind, totally separate from the mind. And therefore, it is like illusions. And therefore, that external object does not exist, truly existent. But the mind exists truly, existence. So that is the difference they make, Within the different phenomena, they distinguish, they say the external objects are not truly existent, but the mind, the subject, which is perceiving those external objects, truly existing. And then that has been negated by the middle way school. So that is the way it is saying, not only the external objects are like illusions, and that which does not truly exist, but even observer, the mind itself, is also not truly existent, and it is also like illusions. And so that is the argument. So then in middle way school, not only the object, but also the subject, both the object, the external object, as well as the subject, the mind, both of them are empty of truly existing. Both of them are like illusions, because even though both of them are empty of truly existing to our mind, both of them appear as truly existence. And therefore, the mode of existing and the way it appears to our mind does not concord, and therefore it is like illusions. And so that is the word, the differences. And again, yeah. Okay, I think. The cycle of existence, its basis in reality, or else it will be like space, So in, I think, the other translation, I think it kind of, again, mind only school saying, cycle existent, that is the, so in samsara, when we are not achieved enlightenment, in an unenlightened mind, then there is appearance of two, the subject and object. There is dualistic view, subject and objects, and that is why, as long as we have that dualistic mind, the appearance of subject and object, and grasping of subject and object, then that mind is not enlightened mind. Neither the person enlightened, so in that cases, it appeared two, substantially distinct things, subject and object. Instead of seeing it's one nature, we see two different, to our mind, it appears two different, and so it's saying that cyclic existence has as the basis of a deceptive appearance, and because of that, then there is a deceptive appearance, and something deceptive appearance is something as real, something as truly existence, due to that dualistic mind and dualistic view, So, according to the mind only school, for ordinary beings, in cycle exists the mind and its object appear, as I mentioned, substantially distinct entity instead of same nature. Whereas in reality, they are same nature, substantially identical in meaning. They are same nature, they come from the same imprint that has kind of same energy, same imprint, that manifested in two different things, one as an object, one as a subject, the observer, you know. So both are in the nature of the mind, you know. So in this in this sense, you know, the consciousness is non-dual, you know. The consciousness is non-dual in a sense because in reality they are same nature, you know. In reality they are in same nature, and so that is why, and so therefore yes, is non-dual conscious. And their argument, otherwise if it does not have something as real as its basis, then it will be just like a space, you know. Then if something is not truly existent, if it's not truly existent and if it's not real, then it will be like a space, and that cannot that cannot function to produce you know, different experience, positive experience, negative experience, you know, because space is accepted example of non-functioning phenomena by its nature, or non-impermanent, or you know. And so in terms of impermanent object, because of the change in cause and condition, different experience, different result are produced. But if something is permanent, then it cannot produce different experience, different result by changing the cause and conditions. And so therefore it is saying, if something is not truly existent, real, then how can it produce different result? You know, otherwise it will be like a space, you know. So that is that they are arguing. So to that, you know, then to that, the Mother Mega says, you know, how can something that does not have any effects by being based on something real, you have approached mind as being an isolated unity, you know. So again, so it is kind of making an argument to that of the previous. So this here the other one give better. So if the dualistic state of the mind or cyclic existence, you know, as they say, dualistic, the mind which has the subject and objects appearing as a different nature, you know, of that cyclic exists, dependent on something real, you know, something real, something truly existing, as you said, the mind holy school, as you said, if it is dependent on something, because you say if it's not real, if it's not something truly existing, then it cannot produce different result. If that is what you said, then how could it have the functioning of appearing as real and real subject and objects? Then how can you say that it has the functioning of appearing something as real or truly existing subject and appearing as truly existing objects? Because if it is something truly existing from the middle way school, if something is truly existing, then it becomes independent. If something is independent, it doesn't depend on other factors, cause and conditions, other factors. If something doesn't depend on other cause and condition and factors, then how can it make it something to function, to appear something or not appear something, you know? So if something's appearing something, if there is a functioning of something appearing or not appearing, that means there is change in those in the cause, and that means it's dependent on others. So therefore, that is the argument, and you know, so therefore it says it will follow that it could not, you know, because real existence cannot exist. Therefore, you know, therefore it cannot exist truly or truly exist, as you said, you know. So thus in your tradition, whatever is mind would become a solitary, non-dual consciousness, as already said, you know, because they say the consciousness and subjects are same nature, you know. So in a way, if they are in the same nature, same identity, it is just a different appearance, then in a way, you know, then it become a non-dualistic consciousness, solitary non-dualistic consciousness, unassisted by any object, you know. So then they become non-dualist. And if that was true, if they are non-dualist, in this way, the mind exists separated from its object, then, you know, all sentient beings would become Tathagata. So all the sentient beings will become Buddha, because all the sentient beings will have that non-dualistic mind, because all sentient beings has that mind, and which in from the middle way school point of view, then those mind, according to your explanation, it will be non-dualistic. And if every sentient beings have non-dualistic mind, then everyone will be Buddha, everyone will be Tathagatas. Because everyone, all sentient beings has the mind. And if that mind, the nature of that mind is non-dualistic, even though you don't say directly that, but it refers to that, the way you explain, if they are same nature in that way, then it becomes non-dualistic. And if every sentient being have that non-dualistic mind, then everyone will be, all sentient beings will be Buddha and Tathagatas, you know. Therefore, what advantage is there in considering the basis of cyclic existence merely mind? And so then he's saying, so then what is the point of trying to explain how everything is merely, how everything exists, cyclic existence, everything exists by merely mind. But that is what the mind holy school says, you know, everything's in the nature of mind. It exists merely in the nature of mind. And so what is the point of explaining it? What is the point of learning that? What is the point of meditating on that? Because all sentient beings are already enlightened. So what is making a point? The reason why you explain your point of view of how everything is merely existing by the in the nature of mind, you explain that. And the reason why you explain is that so by that understanding, sentient beings can study, learn, and cultivate that wisdom, and through that to achieve enlightenment. And all sentient beings are already enlightenment. So what is the point of that? So that is where the argument's making, you know. So then explaining all of that, and then on the basis of understanding and studying, learning and practice, in order to achieve enlightenment, there is no point in that, because all sentient beings is already enlightenment because they have non-dualistic mind. So that is the And then again, verse number 30, you know, Mind Holy School saying, so then again he's arguing, so then, you know, arguing back. If you kind of said that, then also he said, also don't you say, explaining, you know, also middle way school or Mother Miga, you know, you also says, you know, everything's like a illusions, and by having realized that everything like a illusions, then you will overcome all the delusions, you know. So again, how is that possible? Again, he's arguing, you know. Even when the similarity to the illusion is recognized, how does a mental affliction cease? Since the lust for an illusory woman arises, even the one who created her, So argument is saying, when someone's through whatever, trick or through whatever substance, whatever, they create some kind of illusions, illusionary men, women, and then so even the person who's creating whatever illusion there, even though that person understands it's illusions, but still he or she has some attachments towards even the illusionary objects. So then he is saying, so if that person's, even though he or she knows it is illusion, still if he or she has some attachment towards that, how can you say when you have a realization, everything like illusory, like a illusion, like an illusion, then the delusion can be reduced, the delusion can be overcome. So that is the, and again, there is some point in that, like for example, even let's say, even movie, we know it is a movie, it's just a play, whether it's a movie, whether it's a opera or theater or whatever play there is. Despite knowing they are not real, still we can get attached to them. Still we can have, still the person who knows, even though they are not real and they are like just unreal, still people can have different emotions. Sometimes we get excited, sometimes we have a attachment arising, sometimes anger arising, sometimes fear arising. And so then yeah, that is the argument that making. So then how is it possible, having realized the object as a illusions, that the explanation that the delusion will be, the afflictive emotions or delusion will be eliminated by having understanding, realization of like illusions. How is that possible? And so with that kind of example, but because her creates an imprint of afflictive emotions towards the object of knowledge have not been eliminated, when seeing her, his imprint of emptiness is weak. And because of that weak, the realization or understanding is weak, so therefore delusion arises. So what it is saying is, even though we know whether it's an illusion, whether it's a magic, whether it's a movie, whether it's a theater, any kind of play, even though we know they are not real, even though we know it's not real, still different afflictive emotion arises. Because while we know it's unreal in a one way, but at the same time, whatever, for example, in terms of attachments, unreal persons, we're attached because there is a appearance of very attractive, very beautiful, very handsome object there. And seeing the object coming from there, not only we see, even though unreal, but within the unreal, there's appearance of very, attractive, beautiful objects. And not only there's appearance, then the beautiness, that attractiveness, whatever quality that we're attached to, there's a appearance and grasping of that quality coming from that objective side. And when you believe and when you grasp that whatever the quality that we're attracted to coming from that objective side, then desire attachment arises. It is like, even though, let's say, even though books are unreal, but still there is some attraction. There is appearance of some attraction with this unreal book. Do we get it? Even though we know it's unreal, but still even from unreal things, there is appearance of something very attractive. And then not only there's appearance, then we believe that attractiveness is coming from that unreal book, from its own side, from the objective side. And then when we do that, then we have a, desire towards that object. And same thing, when we have anger arising, even though we know that object is unreal, but still within that unreal object, there is appearance of some negative, unpleasantness, negativeness from that unreal object. And not really there is appearance of that negativeness, unattractive, unpleasantness. Again, we believe and we grasp that then unattractive, unpleasantness, that negativeness from that objective side. And when we have grasping of that, then again, anger could arises. And same with the fear and all of that, different emotions. And so that is because, while we see the objects as unreal, like illusions, but we're grasping some of the attributions of that object as truly existing, as real. Do you get it? So this book is unreal, but there is still, this book is real, unreal, but then there is attribute of that book, which we see real. And so that is where the attachment coming from. The attributes such as attractive, unattractive, good or bad, whatever that, So that is so that means you have not understood the emptiness totally. You only understood emptiness of one part, not totally. You see the illusion like of one part, not totally. You see unreal of one part, but not total of that. And that is why our understanding of emptiness is still weak, and therefore still delusion, afflictive emotion could arise. So the next one, by building up imprint of emptiness, the imprint for existence is diminished. And after accustoming oneself to the fact that nothing truly exists, even that diminish. So in so you know what, we try to first establish the emptiness, you know, through reasoning and logic, and through investigation, analysis, and having understood fully through that kind of reasoning, logic, investigations, you know, and then we try to meditate, contemplate on that emptiness again and again and again. And then slowly, as we contemplate, slowly, the grasping of, you know, truly existing, that grasping, that ignorance of grasping truly existence, gradually, slowly, started to diminish, slowly, becoming less and less, you know. And then slowly, as it diminished, the existence, truly existence, you know, existing of that, then slowly, we begin to have more and more. It lead to see all the phenomena, such as external form and so forth, as unreal and more like an illusion, more like a dream state, you know. By seeing, even though they appear truly existing, but they're not truly, the way they exist does not truly exist. And therefore they are more like a dream state, they are more like illusion state. So that will give rise to that kind of understanding, and that kind of understanding and realizations. So again, as I mentioned before, you know, when any of negative emotion arises, if we really analyze, how does it arises? If we really look within our mind, and if we really check, investigate, you know, for example, you know, the iPad that I'm using for Zooming now, you know, and maybe I have certain, when we have attachment to that, where does that attachment arises, you know? If we really try to analyze it, the attachment, the desire, the attachment arises because, you know, we see something beneficial, something goodness in this, you know, because maybe it functions to allow you to have these kind of conversations, and to watch news and different things, you know, keep your files and so forth, you know. So there is, you are attached because you see some quality in that, some attributes, some positive qualities in that. And not only you see those qualities, but you see those qualities coming from its own side, externally, from objectively, from its own side. And when you see that is really coming from it objectively, then we get more, you know, attached, more grasping to that. And same thing, you know, if you dislike something, you know, if we dislike something, why we dislike something? And because you see something negative qualities in that object. And not only you see that negative qualities in that object, you see that negative qualities that you are disliking is coming from that objective. You believe, you grasp that, and the more you believe, you grasp that, the more you dislike that, and the more you can have anger and hatred towards that object. And so that is how. But when we, through that analysis, when we realize, when investigating, analyze, even though it appeared that, but there is no real, objectively, as a positive qualities coming from it objectively, as well as a negative quality from that object, when we are totally convinced from our deep of our heart, totally convinced there's none of those qualities come from objectively from its own side, then we begin to feel different between the way it exists and the appearance. Then we see there is a gap between the appearance and the way thing exists. The way thing exists is something, and the way things appear to us is something else. And so when we understand that, then we don't believe and follow the appearance. And when we don't believe and follow the appearance, then we don't have a grasping. And if we don't have a grasping, then we wouldn't have that attachment and disliking and anger and hatred, So therefore, through that, then we can, by understanding that is how we can diminish, reduce and diminish the afflictive emotions. Once we have done with the objects, then we take the emptiness itself as the object of investigation and analyzing. Okay. Even the emptiness itself also is again empty, of truly existent. If you try to analyze what is emptiness again, and what is emptiness itself, then again, when you do the same kind of analysis, again, you cannot pinpoint what exactly emptiness is, Even though, again, when we don't analyze, the emptiness appears as truly existent to our mind. And not only there's appearance, we grasp on that. And due to grasping of that truly existent or emptiness, again, we can get attachment to the emptiness and grasping to the attachment, the emptiness. And so again, when we do that analyze, then even the grasping to emptiness is diminished and destroyed. And then we understand not only the external object, the subject, the mind, even the emptiness is merely imputed by our mind on the basis of their parts, collections coming together. Nothing more than that. And when we have that kind of understanding, that realizations, then, all the grasping, all the attachment, all the afflictive emotions will start to reduce, minimize, and diminish, Yeah, so that is why it is not enough to understand emptiness of one object, but to be able to, in order to let go of all the all the afflictive emotions toward any object, then we have to have an understanding of emptiness, all the phenomena. But the thing is, you know, the good thing is it says, you know, once you have a direct realization of emptiness of one object, then it is very easy to have realization of emptiness of all other objects easily. Once you have one in relation to one object, then when you kind of expand to other object, we can quickly and easily have the realization of emptiness of other objects. And then when you have understanding or realization of emptiness of all phenomena, then of course, then it wouldn't be like the present moment where we have where we don't have attachment to some object, but we have attached to another object. While we don't have disliking to one object, but we have disliking to another object. Why we are not fearful with certain object, but we are fearful in other objects. So, you know, it is, but once we have realizations of emptiness of all phenomena, then we don't have any fear in relation to any object. We wouldn't have any attachment in relation to any object. We wouldn't have any disliking or anger and in relation to any objects, and all other negative emotion defilements in relation to any object. So I think, let me see, I think there seems to be some cautions, I guess. Oh, I think there is not a questions. Okay, so we'll have a 10-minute breaks, and then, okay. Does anyone have questions so far?
Geshe, may I make a quick announcement?
Yes, please.
I wanted to remind people that tonight and tomorrow night, starting at 9:30 our time, Taos time, that His Holiness is giving the Avalokitesvara empowerment. And you can either go to TNL's page and they have a link to it, I believe, or you can go directly to His Holiness's website to be able to attend it.
So again, in relation to the verses that we went through, again, I think this is another important kind of point. Where he's saying how and why those afflictive emotion arises. So it's important to understand with our own observations and watching our own emotions when we have those negative emotions arises. How does it arise? From where does it arises? Through that observation is important to understand that. And if we really observe, you know, well, mindfully, deeply, then we can see, you know, it comes from that grasping, and grasping towards the objects, toward the different qualities as existing real or truly and from its own objective side, it becomes more clear and clear as we observe, and so therefore, when we meditate on emptiness, then trying to analyze, if the things, if the object, if the object exists truly as it appears to us, then when we do deeper analysis, profound analysis, ultimate analysis, critical analysis, and trying to find either within the part of that object that makes it, within the basis of that object, or within the outside of that, we should be able to pinpoint and find, And so, but when we do analysis and trying to find where is that object, either within each of bases, each of its parts, or outside, outside, and we cannot find it. And when we're unable to find it, there's a sense of just empty, nothing to grasp on, nothing to hold on, and to point and say, this is it. Totally kind of nothing to hold on, nothing to cling on, nothing to grasp on, but just sense of empty. And so then we try to remain in that emptiness, the spacious emptiness, without any other thoughts, thinking, oh, this is not truly existing, or this is not inherently existing, or I'm meditating, I'm thinking, and so on, without having any other thought, without any concept. We just try to keep our mind in that empty, spacious state as much as possible. And when we are able to kind of dissolve any other thought, all other thoughts, but simply just remaining in that empty, spacious state, then our grasping will start to weaken, and our grasping will start to, because there is no object for that grasping to hold on. There's no object for that grasping to cling on. And naturally, that grasping will kind of, become more and more weaker and weaker, and diminish, And when that grasping diminish and become weaker, our other afflictive emotion that arises from that grasping also started to become more and more weak, and slowly diminish, So that is so that is when you do the meditation on emptiness, And then, if we started to think, even though when we analyze that and we cannot pinpoint, and nothing to cling on, grasp on, to pinpoint. At the same time, we cannot deny our direct experience, due to certain object, we experience pleasant. Due to certain object, we experience unpleasant. Due to certain object, we have more neutral experience. So some objects hurt us, harm us, some objects help and benefit us. We cannot deny that direct experience. We are experiencing those direct. We cannot deny, But when we analyze, we cannot find. With that kind of analysis, we cannot find. At the same time, we experience. So we cannot deny. So then how then how is it possible that we experience it? So, we cannot deny those experiences, direct experience. And then we think, oh, the way object exists. So then therefore we cannot deny non-existence of those objects and their effect, because it's a direct experience. We cannot deny a direct experience. So therefore we cannot deny the object and its effect, different effects. And so then how does the object exist, even though we cannot find? When we do that kind of analysis, then the object, those different objects exist on the basis of their parts, particles, their basis. Then our minds, our thoughts, imputing as the object on those parts, coming together with those parts, or the basis, even though none of them are there. And so therefore the way thing exists by depending on others, by depending on other factors such as the basis, the parts, such as the mind, that impute as the object on the basis of that. And that is how it exists. So the thing exists, but not the way that it appears to us, but in a different way. And so then meditating on that, depending arising. After that, then meditating on that depending arising can be helpful for us to not to fall into another extreme of nihilism, So if we analyze this, let's say a car. What is it really car? The wheel is not the car. The body is not the car. The engine is not the car. None of those of the car, but car is imputed or given as a label, as a car, on the basis of all these different parts coming together. And it has certain functionings. And that is what car is. So it is giving a label to many parts, which is none of them as it is. Even though the engine is not the car, but when the engine is strong, we say the car is strong. Even the body is not the car, but when we see the body, we say, oh, it's a big car or small car on the basis of the body. Even the shape of the car is not, shape and color of the car is not a car, but on the basis of shape and color, we say the car is beautiful or not beautiful, nice, not nice, So again, so it is a label that is given by the mind to its parts, which are not, each of those parts are not car, but on the basis of those parts coming together, the basis coming together and having certain function, then is imputed as a car. And so therefore, the car is merely imputed by our mind on the basis of those parts, or on the basis of the basis, And so when we understand that, then while we don't have grasping, at the same time we don't have the danger of falling at the other extreme of nihilism, where nothing exists, So that is, yeah. And then verse number 33. If it is conceived that phenomena that does not really exist, cannot be perceived, of course there is not truly existent to be perceived, because there is nothing that phenomena that exists truly existing in from the middle way school, then how can a non-entity, which is without basis, stand before the mind? Here, non-entity, I think it means for the the emptiness, So it is saying, if there is no truly existence, then how can there be a emptiness of that phenomena, which is without a basis? Because from mind only school of point of view, if the book does not exist truly, then there is no book. If there is no inherently existing book, then there is no book. And if there is no book, then there wouldn't be emptiness of the book, because there is no basis, the basis of that emptiness, such as the book, And so then how can that stand before mind? And then in the answer, when so when we analyze whether any objects exist truly or non-truly existence, at the end, we come to conclusions with that kind of analysis, how thing does not exist the way it appeared to us, and that is the ultimate nature of that phenomena, and that is the object that is being investigated, analysis, and that is the ultimate nature, and that is the emptiness of that, and so, but for this from mind only schools, how can that be possible, the ultimate nature be possible, if there is no basis? And there wouldn't be basis if the basis does not exist truly, so that is the questions. So if the emptiness is not truly or inherently existence, so how can that appear to mind, and how can it stand in the mind? That is so. So again, when we meditate on the emptiness, we try to make sure that nothing appear to mind except then that mere the mere empty of truly existence of the objects, they're just mere negations of the empty of truly existence, and so when that happens, then as I mentioned, then your grasping become less, your grasping become less intense, and less intense, and it become more weak. And again we think on how things does not exist inherently, and again reasoning again, and so again, once you do the reasoning, then you come to again conclusions that it does not exist inherently or truly. And when again you come to that conclusion of not finding and not truly existing, empty of non-truly existent, inherent existent, then again you try to keep your mind in that state without analysis, just experiencing that empty state of emptiness, you know. And not allowing to lose that state of emptiness, not to lose the state of emptiness in your within your mind, and not allowing any other thoughts to arise. And again, if any other thought arises, again you do the analysis, again redo the analysis, and again come to the same kind of conclusions of empty of inherent existence. Again, when you come to that existence, again keep that empty state and trying to remain there. So that is so then, you know, when neither an entity or nor non-entity remain before the mind, you know, then since there's no other possibility, having no object, it becomes calms, you know. So again, I know here entity is referring to the objects, and non-entity is, you know, the emptiness, you know. So again, when we are meditating on emptiness, in meditative state of emptiness, you know, we try to meditate on the non-existent or inherently truly existence of the object, as well as the subject, as well as the emptiness of that subject and object, you know, all of them as a non-truly existence. And in our meditative state, you know, the only thing that appears in that meditative state is only that empty, the emptiness state, you know, that emptiness state. Nothing others appearing to that mind, only the mere negations of inherent existence, or the mere empty state, emptiness state, you know. So then on that, we try to keep our mind focused on that and experience that spacious empty, the emptiness, you know. And then without having any kind of thought, you know, that I'm meditating, that I'm realizing emptiness, I'm meditating, or, you know, I'm not being able to focus, or I'm able to focus, or my meditation is good, or my meditation not good, without having any kind of those concepts. We just try to, once we have those concepts, you know, I'm meditating, then already there is a dualistic view. Subjects, I, and the objects, I meditating, or my mind meditating. So we already have these two, subject and object, and kind of dualistic. And so, you know, without any kind of, and when you're dualistic, then there is a, you know, it's more difficult to destroy that grasping. And so without any kind of dualistic view, you know, whatever in your mind, in your meditation meditative state, what appears only empty is nothing else. So we try to keep that in that, and so on, and not remaining any other mind, any other concept in that way. And when we are able to do that, then as I mentioned at the beginning, then there is no objects to cling on, to hold on, to grasp on, because everything is just mere empty. There's no object to cling, grasp, hold on. And when there's no, then the grasping naturally become weak, less intense, less active, and slowly, with the time, as we continue to meditate more and more, slowly, it becomes less and less subtle, and less active, less manifesting. And eventually, we can totally pacify, we can totally grasp, totally abandon and eliminate that. And so that is, so again, when we are at the very beginning, when you are trying to understand emptiness and trying to meditate on emptiness, first, either through listening to the teachings or reading ourselves, in whatever way, through study, we have some understanding. On the basis of that understanding, we'll try to reflect, contemplate, and then again, and whatever we have understood through listening and through studying, we'll try to reflect, contemplate, reflect on that again and again, contemplate on again and again on the meaning of that. Through that, then our wisdom become little bit more profound. At the very beginning, our wisdom is some understanding of emptiness through hearing, and then next one, then our wisdom got more subtle, more profound. Wisdom coming from reflections, that you yourself have thought a lot about it, reflected a lot about it. So then your understanding become more deeper, more profound. And once we have come to that certain certainties and certain understanding through that kind of reflections, then we meditate on that, familiarizing our mind with that again and again, and that is the meditation. And through that kind of meditation, then we have a wisdom which is much more deeper and profound than the previous two wisdom. The wisdom coming from the meditations, And even with that, at the very beginning, it comes, even though we have experiential realization or understanding of emptiness, but still it is with a concept. Still it is a concept. At the first two paths, the path of preparation and path of accumulation and path of preparation, it is still with concept. Using reasoning and logics and investigating, analyzing, still with concept, even though it's a experiential understanding, And again, in the path of accumulation, there are 3 stages. In the path of preparation, there are 4 stages. And with each stages, as we continue to meditate on emptiness, the dualistic view, become less and less with each of those stages, 4 stages, And finally, then we have direct realization of emptiness without any dualistic view, non-dualistic, direct realizations, And when we when we have that direct realization, then we progress to the third path, the path of seeing, you know. So by that time, while we have overcome the gross level of, you know, defilements, the delusion, and especially the fabricated obscurations that we still have some subtle, and then in the path of meditations, again, we continue to meditate, and again, and eventually, you know, we overcome even the most subtle level of obscurations. And when someone is able to destroy, eliminate, and overcome even the most subtle level of the obscurations, then from that moment, then you achieve full enlightenment. You know? And so that is how we progress in the path through the wisdom realizing emptiness, stage by stage, progressing, you know, to the unenlightened beings, even those who have a direct realization in emptiness or non-direct realization in emptiness, you know. In meditative equipoise, when they are in deep meditation on emptiness, in that meditative equipoise, you know, there is no dualistic appearance, you know, because the mind is in a non-dualistic. It is like, you know, the water being mixed with the water. So there is no separations in that water. If you mix two water, there is no separation. In that state of mind, subject, object, there is no separations, you know. There's no appearance of subject and object. The moment we have that the appearance of subject and object, then that becomes dualistic. So in that meditative state, non-dualistic mind state. But when they come out of that meditative equipoise, that meditative sessions, and then they engage in the other activities, then again there is appearance of truly existent, inherent existence. There is appearance, they don't have grasping, okay? But still they have the appearance. In the meditative equipoise, of course, not only there is no grasping, they don't even have the appearance. But in the post-meditations, then, you know, again, the object appears truly inherently, you know, but they don't grasp and they don't believe that because they see them as like an illusion, like a dream. Because they can see things does not exist truly as it appears to the mind, so they don't get deceived by the appearance, and so there is no grasping, but still there is appearance, you know. But once you achieve fully enlightenment, you know, then there is not even the appearance, you know. So not only there is no grasping, there is no appearance. And when you achieve enlightenment, then there is no difference between the meditative equipoise and post-meditative equipoise. The enlightened, the Buddha, is always in the both meditative and post-meditative state simultaneously. For the sentient beings, even the Bodhisattvas, they cannot be in the same state. When they are in meditative equipoise, they are in not post-meditative equipoise. When they are in post-meditative equipoise, they are not in meditative equipoise. But once you become fully enlightenment, then the Buddha is, the enlightened one is always in the both meditative and post-meditative equipoise simultaneous. And because of that, while they are in deep meditative state, at the same time they can function to help and benefit simultaneously. And spontaneously, without any thoughts. For sentient beings, for us, even we try to help someone else, benefit someone, it's driven by thought. I want to help. I want to benefit. Sometimes it's growth. Sometimes it's more subconscious level. Sometimes a subtle level, but it is always come through some kind of thoughts. It follow the thoughts. But once you achieve enlightenment, then it's not driven by such a thought, but spontaneous, natural, just and so that is and so that is why the Buddha can be such a great benefit to such a many sentient beings. So then the next one. The next one is explaining the result of achieving enlightenment, and also the result of having a highest level of realization of the emptiness, having actualized the Dhammakaya wisdom, So Dhammakaya wisdom is the wisdom, that realize the emptiness of the enlightened mind, and which is free from all the obscurations, so which is free from natural obscuration and temporary obscuration. Natural obscurations is free from empty of truly existence, and temporary obscurations, or the obscurations of delusion and knowledge, so which is free from all that obscurations. So just as a wish fulfilling gems or wish granting trees satisfy the desire, so no, is that so? Yeah. So the image of Jana is seen because of his vows and his disciple. So he's saying, just like a wish-fulfilling gem, and if you make any kind of prayer or wishes, all your wishes are being fulfilled. All wish-granting trees, if there is such as wish-granting tree, then again, whatever you wish, all your wishes are fulfilled. And similarly, when someone has overcome all the obscurations through the wisdom, Dhammakaya wisdom, that realizes the emptiness, when that is achieved, the state that is when you have realized that the Dhammakaya wisdom and become enlightenment, and so due to that wisdom, Dhammakaya wisdom, while you are totally in meditative equipoise of that Dhammakaya wisdom, at the same time, due to your Bodhisattva mind, due to all the incredible prayer that the Buddha has made on the path as a Bodhisattvas, incredible motivations, determinations, the prayers, that they have made, and the vows they have made, as well as due to the karma of the sentient beings, due to the karma of the sentient beings. So when all these come together, then that Dharmakaya wisdom manifest into a different form that appear to different sentient beings according to the different karmas. And through that, then they help and benefit the sentient beings and thereby fulfill the wishes of all sentient beings. So again, the way the Buddha help and benefit sentient beings is through showing the path. Showing the path, and as Buddha said, I can show you the path to the liberation, but it is up to you whether you achieve liberation or not, whether you apply those teachings and the practice or not, And so the Buddha show us the path, and we follow the path, and by following the path, then we can fulfill and satisfy our wishes, achieving different levels of happiness. And in order to that, then many cause and conditions have to come together. Many cause and conditions coming together. It is, of course, it is the Buddha's own Dharmakaya wisdom. That is the basis for the Buddhas to manifest in the different forms and to lead the different sentient beings according to their karma, manifesting in a, Sambhogakaya for those highly realized bodhisattvas, manifesting in Nirmanakaya, or the form to not so highly realized sentient beings who doesn't have same karma. And within the Nirmanakaya, again, many different forms according to the different level of sentient beings. And by manifesting those different forms, and then, and so Buddha is able to perform such a effortless, spontaneous activities all the time towards the sentient beings, due to his the Buddha's Dharmakaya wisdom, as well as due to his incredible Bodhisattva mind, as well due to all the vows, prayer that he had made on the path, as well as the sentient beings' karma. So when all this come together, when all this come together, then we receive the Buddha's, whatever we call it, Buddha's blessing, inspirations, and guidance. And through that, then, if we practice, then we can see transformations. And with the transformation in our mind, our attitude, in our behavior, then we are able to reduce more suffering and achieve more happiness. So that is, yeah. So I think maybe we will stop here for today. So does anyone has any other questions? Any questions, comments? If not, then we can do the dedications.
Okay, I'll read the list and leave a little space at the end of each list for people to add names. For people who are dealing with obstacles, we have Rudabe Alam, Cheyenne Tierra, Nini Ghaffari, Sarah Jacobson, Chris Cody, Caleb Elias Moore, Alicia Huck, Clarence G, Taryn A, Marina Coleman, Nina Matsiak, Mary Jo, Justin Bailey, Tiffany Jamer, Dustin Tuckerman, Abby Tuckerman, Liam Tuckerman, Kosama, Brooke Tatum, Dasha Pellerin, Katia Pellerin, Timo, Amber Rose Lopez, Ro Rai, Children from the Bunkers, Patty, Bill, Ross, Dana and Erica Miller, Alyssa and John, Mary, Laura, Joanne, Joanne Foreman, Laura Boyle, Morgan, Gray Leger, Shanna Forstall, Sue, and Jenny Lancaster.
Dorcas Raynard.
Dorcas Raynard. Those dealing with illness, Nini Ghaffari, Roberto Johnson, James Stoner, Mingo, Amber Rose Lopez, Tamara Kerner, Louise Rose, people with coronavirus, traumatized children from bunkers, Colleen Shaughnessy, Patsy and Ron Irons, Lyra Laurie, Bobby, Shirley, Taryn A, Mary Lou, Marvin, Andy, Jeannie, Mary, Sean Dean, Z the cat, Sammy the dog, Mr. Bitty, Katia Paymane. And those who have recently died, Val Stoner, Children in Bunkers, Sanjukta Tamang, Michael Lutz, Carol Johnston, Morgan Spencer, Candy, Zeus, people who have died from COVID-19, Valentina Blackhorse, Julia Woods, Kate Nielsen, Gary Ibarra, Michael Kotso Cabelli, Jennifer Ryan, Shifra's friend.
And Felicia Thal and Bob Mishler, please.
Okay.
Gewadi nyoto ta lama sangye do yone do chi jama le pa te sa la kwe pa sho chanjo semjo rembo che ma ke pa na ke kyo che kewa nyamba me ba yang the wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kindness in Yahweh, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To Chang Xin Chang Gun Yahweh, Ten Jin Chong Pe Wei Kwan To To Bo Zi, Chou Song Ku Wei Le Mo Tu Tu. Venerable One, to you whose kindness exists that of all the conqueror for those who wander in the far off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us, in intentionally descending again into the family of our distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please live long. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you,
Geshe.
Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Night night.
Good night.
Well.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.